12 days of death, destruction and threats. One ceasefire, multiple victory claims. Trump's bizarre Hiroshima comparison.
I don't want to use an example of Hiroshima. I don't want to use an example of Nagasaki. But that was essentially the same thing.
Who has gained the upper hand? Have tensions eased or escalated? Who won the Israel-Iran war? Top focus on NewsTrack.
Hello and welcome. Good evening. You're watching NewsTrack here on India Today. I'm Akshita Nandagopal. The question we'll be asking this evening is who won the Iran-Israel conflict, the West Asia conflict? And we're joined here in the studios by Rajdeep Sardesai and Gaurav Sawant. We'll give you a bit of insight really of what's played out in the last few days in times of war and hopefully peace. But let's begin with breaking news coming in. US President Donald Trump again claiming credit for the India-Pakistan ceasefire. And 7 days after Trump's phone conversation with Prime Minister Modi, Trump again saying that he went ahead and spoke to India and Pakistan on the issue of trade, saying if you're going to continue to fight, there will be no trade deal. Now, President Trump says that he met with the army chief of Pakistan, heaps praises on him, and then in the very same breath speaks of Prime Minister Modi as a great friend, calls him a great gentleman. Listen in to this.
A few weeks, we took care of India and Pakistan, Kosovo, Serbia. I think on Friday we have coming in, the Congo is coming in and Rwanda is coming in. That was a vicious war that went on, a machete war, heads chopped off all over Africa. They're coming in. We did 2 others in addition to that. Nobody's ever done anything like this. The most important of all, India and Pakistan. And that wasn't whether or not they may someday have nukes like we're talking about in the Middle East, like we're talking about with Israel and Iran. This is they have nuclear weapons. I ended that with a series of phone calls on trade. I said, look, if you're going to go fighting each other, it was getting very bad. You know how bad that last attack was. It was really bad. If you're going to go fighting each other, we're not doing any trade deal. No, you have to do a trade deal. I said, we're not doing any trade deal. And in fact, I had the general, who was very impressive. The general from Pakistan was in my office last week. You know, Prime Minister Modi is a great friend of mine. He's a great gentleman. He's a great man. And I got them to reason. I said, we're not doing a trade deal if you're going to fight. And if you're going to fight each other, we're not doing a trade deal. And you know what? They said, no, I want to do the trade deal. We stopped the nuclear war. Go ahead.
So that's Donald Trump there singing the same tune on ceasefire, singing the same tune on a trade deal, saying that I made it very clear to both countries there will be no trade deal, essentially suggesting that that's what led to a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Rajdeep, what do you make of this? 7 days after the phone conversation with Prime Minister Modi, where India said very clearly, we've told Trump exactly what happened. We've set the record straight. Trump again repeating what he said previously.
Look, the good news is he didn't use the F word. You know, the bad news is the fact is that this is the 16th time, 1-6, that he's announced how he's brought the India-Pakistan ceasefire. Look, Trump is suffering from the I factor, wants to put him at the center of every whatever is happening around the world around him. He's a consummate, archetypal narcissist. But having said that, when you say it for the 16th time in the manner that he does and hyphenates India and Pakistan, speaks about General Munir and Prime Minister Modi in the same breath, you've got a problem. I think we've got to acknowledge the fact now, for God's sake, we've pussyfooted around this for the last month without acknowledging. The US president is for the 16th time saying, and I quote, the India-Pakistan war, I ended with a series of phone calls on trade. I said, if you are going to go on fighting each other, we're not doing any trade deal. He's obviously onto something. Look, That's why I think there's silence in a way on both sides. A, they don't want to get into a confrontation with Donald Trump, which is understandable. But B, I think we need more clarity, and we cannot simply say that this is Donald Trump sounding off as we do all the time. I think for our own sense of self-pride and national interest, we should make it clear we will not allow the hyphenation, at the very least, of India and Pakistan. At least say that. That should be said loud and clear, and it should be heard in White House. It should be said in English, not in Hindi by the Foreign Secretary.
Gaurav, what do you think? Do you think India should be sending across a tough message that we're not okay with this kind of sweeping terms that Trump makes, and also about referring to India and Pakistan, about the Pakistan Army Chief and Prime Minister Modi in the same sentence under the same breath?
There is an illusion, there's an experiment that psychologists carry out. It's called the illusion of truth. And that is, you repeat a lie 100 times, it becomes the truth. The Nazis tried it and they used it to perfection. Donald Trump seems to be doing the same. And my self-worth is not decided by what Donald Trump believes or says. It's decided by what we believe is the truth. And when Foreign Secretary of India says it loud and clear, and Donald Trump speaks English, he says it in English. The Foreign Secretary speaks Hindi, he's saying it in Hindi. We take great pride in our Hindi, and he said it in Hindi. There was no conversation, Prime Minister Narendra Modi told Donald Trump, on trade. There was no conversation between them on the ceasefire or trade or any mediation. India has never accepted mediation. India will never accept mediation. Donald Trump may offer. It's like somebody who's trying to sell his wares. You don't buy those wares. India's not getting into that mediation game at all. And that trade that he says, I will not do trade, it's as much in his interest as it is in ours. So there is a trade deal if it is in mutual interest. We need to take more pride in ourselves and accept the fact that when India is saying so, it matters. Just because a white man is saying it, it does not carry more weight.
No, I agree with you that a trade deal is beneficial for both, that for the US too, they need this trade deal. But having said that, you know, the president making these kind of comments, it doesn't augur well perhaps globally also for India. Rajdeep, you wanted to make a point.
No, look, I agree that Donald Trump is economical with the truth, and we live in a post-truth society. I accept that. But I still believe that the manner in which he is hyphenating India and Pakistan is troubling. We can claim that, the Foreign Secretary was speaking in Hindi because he wants to cater to a domestic narrative. The fact is, Donald Trump, like him or not, is the most powerful person in the world at the moment. And we saw that just a few days ago in the Israel-Iran war, in the manner in which Trump claimed he was the one who brought in the ceasefire, moved in the B-2 bombers. The truth of the matter, though, Akshita, at the moment is, we've got to wake up and realize that Donald Trump is someone who is playing some kind of a dangerous double game here. He's using Pakistan because he wants Pakistan also to be seen, possibly because of his geographical location, but possibly because of certain other reasons, to be seen as some kind of a frontline ally, even in the short term. And Pakistan has played it very smartly, used Donald Trump. And India, with whom America has a natural long-term future, with whom we should be building a future based on the economy, also has a space. But every time Donald Trump mentions Asim Munir and Narendra Modi in the same breath, I have a problem. I don't know why Gaurav Sawant suddenly doesn't have a problem with that, but that's up to Gaurav Sawant. Here is someone, Gaurav Sawant, who till the other day was calling Asim Munir the sponsor of terror, and I agree with that. Asim Munir and the Pakistani army rogue state has sponsored terror. What does Asim Munir get? He gets a lunch with the US president. Why is Gaurav Sawant not incensed by the fact that the US president has called the general a very impressive person?
With it. Gaurav never said he's okay.
You can't cherry pick. Gaurav Sawant is trying to cherry pick it.
Gaurav, what do you have to say?
He's laughing,
India,
he's smiling,
Pakistan,
he knows he's embarrassed by what's happened.
No, that's Donald Trump's funeral. That's not my funeral. If he wants to sup with the devil, that's up to him. At least I'm not supping with the devil. At least I don't believe in that fake Aman Ki Vasha with a state sponsor of radical Islamist terror. And India is very clear about it. And the government has articulated that point very clear. India goes and bombs Pakistan now. 13 air bases and radar stations. It does not do Aman Ki Asha and no, that Vaga, Rajdeep doesn't like that word, the Mombatti at Vaga, so there's no Vaga Mombatti happening anymore. Donald Trump wants to do it, it's his funeral. He has to explain.
No, 1 minute.
He has to explain. Daniel,
permit me.
He has to explain Osama bin Laden was killed in Abbottabad. Why is he giving a free lunch? but he's not. It's actually Rajdeep. Frankly, it is Asim Munir who's very embarrassed because he was having lunch with Donald Trump and Donald Trump was bombing a fellow Biradar Musalman nation called Iran, even though it's Shia and Sunni. So that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing for Asim Munir. He's being criticized back home. India has nothing to do with.
But Gaurav, are you okay? Are you okay when Trump refers to the Pakistan army chief as a great man, in the same breath refers to Prime Minister Modi as a great man? Are you okay with that?
It just shows
because it's
Donald
almost a comparison.
It's Donald Trump's shallow appreciation of the ground reality.
President.
He may well be. He's an American president with a very, very shallow appreciation of ground realities. Why should I be embarrassed? He should be embarrassed. Americans should be embarrassed. What kind of a man is their president? He doesn't know the difference between a dictator, a tin pot dictator in a sham democracy and a democracy that India is a growing, rising economy, the third largest, on our way to being the third largest. If he wants to equate the two, it's his funeral. It doesn't happen like that.
Rajdeep.
2 points. One, first of all, I'm happy that my friend Gaurav Sawant is waking up to Donald Trump and who Donald Trump is, because Gaurav was part of the cheerleading, I think, Up Ki Baar Trump Sarkar.
I was reporting. I'm a reporter. I was reporting.
Let me rephrase that. I correct myself. The Indian right was celebrating Donald Trump till the other day. Up Ki Baar Trump Sarkar. We thought that Trump was just the person India needed. What's happened? You can't say that this is, Trump's problem. That this is Trump has to work it out. The truth of the matter, Akshita, is we live in the neighborhood with a country that sponsors and finances terror. And therefore, when the leader of that country, and I call Asim Munir the leader because it shows just how timid and non-existent is the civilian leadership today in Pakistan.
Good morning. I'm glad that realization has finally dawned.
One minute. I've called it the rogue state, of the rogue army state. I've said it before. Every country has an army. Pakistan is where the army has a country. But we have really genuine security concerns if the US president is seen to be almost legitimizing the Pakistani army chief.
Not for the first time.
Within 2 months of Pahalgam. Within 2 months of Pahalgam, you have the US president legitimizing General Asim Munir, not condemning Pakistan in unequivocal terms, a country which has got a second tranche of the IMF, got loans from the ADB, is a vice chairman of the committee at the United Nations on counter-terrorism, is the chairman of the committee of the Taliban sanctions, and we are okay with it? That it is Trump's problem? It cannot be Trump's problem. Pakistan's army being legitimized in this way should be India's problem. We've seen this in the past also. This happened with Zia-ul Haq. This happened with Musharraf. It's happening with Munir.
Okay, let's respond now.
So we've lived with it. We've lived with it through Yahya Khan. We've lived with Zia-ul Haq. We've lived with it through Musharraf era. And we are living with it now. It's just that we are now smarter. Earlier, the Americans would arm twist us to look after their interests in Afghanistan. So when a 26/11 happens, we were arm twisted in not responding to 26/11. Now when a Pahalgam happens, you go and bomb the pants of Pakistan.
No, they bomb the pants of Pakistan.
You see, do, which you have never done before. Never.
So then
13 air bases.
So then why? No. If Gaurav Sawant, let's assume that you're right. Let's assume.
No, don't assume. I am right.
Hold on.
I am right. It's a fact.
Just like what's happened with Israel and Iran, this is a battle of narratives there. My limited point to you at the end.
I am on facts.
If that is the case, that we've done all this. We bombed the pants out of them. Why did we agree to a ceasefire in the manner that we did? That's the question that will be asked. And asking that question is a completely valid question. Every time, just a minute. Every time Donald Trump says, I did the ceasefire, I told them stop the fighting or there's no trade deal, he embarrasses us for that very reason. If we had such an advantageous position and then we agreed to a ceasefire, there's a huge question mark that the Prime Minister and the people of this country need to be taken into confidence on.
Gaurav, you want to answer Rajdeep's question on the ceasefire? Go ahead.
Of course. So India, unfortunately not many people understand in every war there is an aim and there is maintenance of aim. What was our aim? Our aim was to degrade their military capabilities. What did we do? India went and bombed 11 of their air bases, some that remain inoperable even today. Even today, Pakistan cannot use half of those 11 air bases that India bombed. We've bombed their radar stations. We've degraded their capabilities. What else was our aim? All these jokers who say, POK nahi le liya. Was POK lena aim? If you had to take Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, you have to put your troops accordingly. You can't just say, I will go and take POK. And that is why military training in terms of knowledge and expertise has to become a part of our everyday life, because we live next door to terror. So we agreed to a ceasefire because our aim was achieved. Point 1. Point 2, Pakistan came begging on a bent knee for a ceasefire, and that Pakistan has never denied.
That's not what Donald Trump is saying. That's not what Donald Trump is saying.
It's up to you. If you have more faith in Donald Trump, you believe Donald Trump. If you have more faith in your DGMO, you believe your DGMO or your foreign secretary. So, your aim has been achieved. Will he try and hit you again? He may try to hit you again, but he will be hit harder. Depends on who's the government of the day. But if it is like somebody like a Narendra Modi, he will go and hit Pakistan even harder. That is what we've seen from surgical strike to airstrikes to the current post-Pahalgam strikes. That is the only point, my limited point, that you cannot take POK unless you plan to take POK. Gaurav, and this was not the aim.
Gaurav, another aspect of this was that we always spoke of global isolation of Pakistan. With these kind of messages that are coming in from the US president and him hosting the Pakistan army chief, there seems to be a problem there of global isolation. Pakistan seems to be doing just fine, having the support they need.
Sure, they're a country. Everybody will use every other country. Look, every country, there are no permanent friends, no permanent enemies. There are just permanent national interests. So if those countries think that their interests are better served engaging with Pakistan, they will engage with Pakistan. If our interests are better served not engaging with Pakistan, we will not engage with Pakistan. It is as simple as that. Hum thodi muh phula ke baith jayenge. It's not like the two children playing in kindergarten that I'll start sulking, ya kutti ho gayi meri, I will not talk to you because you're talking to Pakistan. That's not the way international diplomacy works. But what is the level of their engagement with Pakistan? Is everyone treating Pakistan like this pariah state that you have to remain engaged with so that it doesn't become like another Libya or it doesn't become like another terrorist state? If that is the aim, then countries will want to have at least some some ins with the establishment in Pakistan so that Asim Munir does not become Hafiz Saeed openly.
I think we've heard from both Rajdeep and Gaurav on this. This extended a lot more than I planned to, because our focus on NewsTrack was meant to be on the Israel-Iran conflict. And since I want to hear, and I'm sure you want to hear from both of them or what they have to say about that conflict, quickly we'll put the focus on that and get you some of the highlights, essentially, of what the Israeli ambassador and Iranian ambassador have had to say in the last few days. Here on India Today, we're the only channel to have both sides, both voices. So quick look at what they all had to say on some of the biggest contentious issues of this conflict, and then we'll bring in Rajdeep and Gaurav on that.
Absolutely, Gaurav. We have removed two existential threats on the existence of our state. One was the nuclear weapons program of Iran that was obliterated, and the second was the ballistic missile program that was also decimated. And by that, we have achieved the goals that we have set in 12 days. This has been an effort of decades that the Iranians have been putting in order to create the threats, and they have been removed swiftly.
Netanyahu is not reliable. He launched a military aggression against Iranian peaceful nuclear installation facilities, and he also during his military operation, this attack, they targeted residential area, healthcare centers, ambulances, hospitals, residential areas, different, did not pay the least bit attention to the international law, humanitarian law. So he is not reliable. He is not reliable regarding the ceasefire. But anyway, we are ready to respond to any action by Israel.
The Iranian regime has reached a ceasefire 1 hour after it entered into force. That's why Israel decided to retaliate. At that point, because President Trump has invested interest in the success of the ceasefire, he convinced Prime Minister Netanyahu to actually get a retaliation that is milder. I think naturally was concerned that the ceasefire that we have brokered with our agreement as well was about to collapse, and therefore he replied the way he replied. But thankfully, the ceasefire now seems stable.
Intentionally, our military operation was in response to the responding to the aggression of Israel. If Israel stop, you can call it ceasefire or whatever you want. If it stop, we will stop our operation against Israel. But you can count it as ceasefire or other thing.
Because Israel has gone, in many ways, out of its way in order to save human lives, in order to try to get people out of harm's way. And it is.
So you heard from both sides there on several of the issues. Rajdeep, what do you think? 12 days after this entire conflict that broke out, who's emerged with the advantage here? Who do you think has won this conflict amid a true ceasefire?
You know, I don't treat a war like a cricket match. And I don't think you should either. You know, the win, loss, it makes headlines. But I think increasingly, particularly in the world of warfare, and Gaurav will know this better than I do, I think every war is now fought with much more limited strategic objectives, and we have to look at what those limited strategic objectives were. From that perspective, it would seem certainly that Israel has sent a very strong message to Iran, and thereby would seem to have made a point. But let's be also honest. Iran was and is not Hamas, is not the Houthis, is not the Hezbollah. This is a large sovereign nation, a proud people, an ancient civilization. And therefore, when I hear, you know, Iran has surrendered, as Donald Trump again claimed unconditional surrender, it didn't happen. What are we seeing today on the streets of Iran? Celebrations. Look, there are domestic narratives that run contemporaneously. We saw it even in India and Pakistan. India claiming we had won. Pakistan also there were celebrations. And in the end, who claimed real credit? Donald Trump. Same thing is happening here. So I think we have to accept that there were strategic objectives, some of which have been achieved, some of which have not. Look at the intelligence report that CNN has broken today and which is making the news. That Iran's nuclear arsenal may not have been damaged to the extent that many believe. They will be back perhaps in a month or two, back with their nuclear program. So did you achieve that objective? Israel's foreign minister, defense minister, certainly defense minister said that we want a regime change. Has that happened? Not yet. So I think we have to be a little careful before we assess who's won and lost. I think it will depend on how this plays out over the next 6 months, just as I believe even with India and Pakistan. It will depend on how this plays out over the next 6 to 12 months. Let's not rush into judgment on who's won or lost without seeing whether our medium and long-term strategic objectives have been achieved, whether Israel, Iran, or indeed between India and Pakistan.
Okay, before I bring in Gaurav, since Rajdeep, you said that, you know, we shouldn't be looking at it as a win or a loss, let's at least address the other question here of what really started this conflict, or who started this conflict to you, Rajdeep? Because Israel says that, look, it was started in October 2023. There are some who say that Israel started it with suddenly launching this operation out of the blue.
Look, I think, to find a trigger point in a highly volatile region like the Middle East, which has seen so much of war and conflict over the years, is very difficult. The Iranian state has taken upon itself to almost be a defender of the faith, take on Israel. They've spoken openly of annihilating Israel. Debt to America has been heard on the streets of Iran, which I find unacceptable. Similarly, the manner in which Israel has responded, for example, in Gaza, I find unacceptable. Complete violation of international law. And therefore, to my mind, even that question as to who started it off, we can go back in history as to where it started. We can go look at the Palestinian problem on multiple issues. I think West Asia remains extremely turbulent. So I think who started it? Certainly this round was started by Israel. Let's make no doubt about it, by Operation Rising Lion 2 Fridays ago. But the Israelis could well turn around and say it's the Iranians who targeted them last year. So I'm reluctant to say kisne shuru kiya. That's also like who won the toss. This is not the way to look at it. This is historical. Let's look at it in the historical context in which these conflicts take place.
Gaurav, do you think so too, that you can't really point fingers at anyone in such a sensitive time and in this kind of a conflict?
So, you know, in war, there are no winners. In war, everyone's a loser. And that is why it should be diplomacy to find any solution to any problem. Point one. Point two, I find it a little strange that we believe Donald Trump when he says he brokered a ceasefire between India and Pakistan, but we don't believe Donald Trump when he says Israel won and Iran surrendered. So we are very selective in when we choose to believe Donald Trump. That's point two. Point three, I want to be very clear. As Rajdeep very rightly pointed out, every war has aims. Who was able to achieve their aim? And in this case, Israel has been able to achieve a large number of its stated aims, from the point of degrading, targeting Fordo and Isfahan and Natanz and multiple other. There were over 100 targets inside Iran that were neutralized, both military and nuclear. Almost 20 of the 22 top generals have been neutralized. I think 11 of 13 of their top nuclear scientists have been neutralized. A lot of their military capabilities in terms of production of missiles, launching of missiles, that's been neutralized. A third of their arsenal has gone. So that way, the fact
objectives
that
met.
Some certain objectives met, certain objectives will take more time. As they say, did Donald Trump force a ceasefire on Israel and Iran like he's alleged to have forced a ceasefire here? Well, either ways, Iran would have received more punishment and Pakistan would have received more punishment in terms of the military might of the two adversaries. Iran was able to hit back, and no doubt, very proud people, a very old civilization, but no civilization, and especially if you've been such an old civilization, should you wish total annihilation of another people. That's completely unacceptable. And their entire, that ring fence of Houthi, Hamas, Hezbollah, they've been neutralized. As Bashar al-Assad, lost Syria. All of that just goes on to show that Iran has been able to survive to fight another day, but Israel has been able to make a very big point.
Quick
very quickly, just some more breaking news coming in. Since we started with Donald Trump, says conflict between Israel and Iran could start again, perhaps soon. So, and let me tell you a bit of news that a source, a diplomatic source told me. When it came to India, Pakistan, the Saudis played a role. When it came to Iran, Israel, the Qataris played a role. And at some stage, all of this will come out. We can try and shroud it in secrecy. We can try and shroud it in rhetoric. Eventually, a lot of this will slowly but surely come out. And I hope it does come out. And I hope it does, because then Gaurav and I next time will be able to have a debate based on facts.
We always have debates based on facts, and the fact remains.
At the moment, we've got post-truth leaders, none of whom I trust.
Fact. I trust our government when it comes to a war with Pakistan. But I have to tell you this. The fact remains, 11 Pakistan Air Force bases were decimated. Multiple radar stations were decimated. Pakistan cannot use a large number of those air bases even today. So these are hard facts. And these are the facts that prompted Pakistan to seek a ceasefire. Otherwise, the next round, perhaps Operation Sindoor is still on. That next round will be worse for Pakistan.
Okay, so when it comes to true ceasefire, whether it's India, Pakistan, Iran, Israel, a lot of claims, counterclaims being made, and of course the entire waters being muddied with Trump constantly making all of these comments about his role, what he's done, etc. And now even saying that very soon we could see a conflict flaring up. Let's hope not. Rajdeep, Gaurav, as always, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsTrack. Completely run out of time. Thank you very much for tuning in.